We are back. Super excited. Welcome back to City on a Hill. Today's guest is someone I just met. No, I'm joking. It's my wife, ladies and gentlemen. I was able to get my wife on the show. So welcome, Denise Estramera. Denise Maldonado, really. But no, for real. I'm excited to have you on. I know I slightly forced you to do it, but you're supporting me. But no, I'm excited to tell the world a little bit, or whoever listens, right? A little bit more about you and what you do, and just honor you and love on you through this pod. And I'm excited. How do you feel?
I feel me siento excited.
All right, so let's start. Even though I know who you are, I guess you could tell everybody about yourself. Where you from, where you grew up, where you grew up, things of that sort. And then we get real deep right after that.
Okay. I'm born and raised in Queens, New York. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. Puerto Rican household. My parents were born in Puerto Rico, came to New York. My mom came when she was 2. My dad came when he was 17. Yeah.
Your dad is a legend, by the way. A legend. All right. So we are married for 6 years now. And we share a beautiful baby boy, a 3-year-old. And we have one on the way. I'm excited about that. Due in like 5 weeks.
Yep.
So I had to get you on the pod before that happened. But I guess, can you tell me a little bit about what's this journey been? I know we can split it up and talk about marriage, and then we can talk about being a mother. But let's talk about, I guess, being a mother first. What has the journey been like for you? And, are there any similarities with you and Jordan that you can kind of like share? And
I think the journey has been very interesting and never a dull moment. I think, when we first had gotten married, or a little bit before we got married, I told myself, or I was contemplating having kids just because of different reasons.
Yeah.
World being crazy and all the stuff. And I was
like,
just
by the way, it's not happening. I was like, wait, what?
But, Jordan's like amazing. And so glad we made the decision to finally have children.
Yeah, I like him. He's cool. He's a funny guy.
Never a dull moment, full of energy. I would say if there's any similarities between us, aside from like some of the physical ones, is that, I don't know, we have a certain particular way about ourselves.
You guys
maybe a little OCD.
Yeah, you guys are definitely
with certain
OCD.
things.
You guys are extremely OCD.
Yeah.
But it's a struggle being with you guys, but it's fun. What would you say has been the toughest thing you've experienced being a mother?
I think the toughest thing for me is just having a bit more patience. And because I guess of some of the OCDness, just like learning how to let things go and mistakes happen or messes happen, etc. Just like, I know it sounds minor, but sometimes things like that can get me a little on edge. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know it's not about me, but I guess one of the toughest things for me is I would not really the patience part, because I think I'm pretty patient with him. Like, I could just let him
definitely
scream.
More than me.
I could let him scream for hours in my ear without a problem, and I could just keep playing 2K. But I think for me is the obviously we both share with each other life, right? Imagine if we didn't. But you know how I grew up, and my household and my childhood. So for me, I think the toughest thing about being a father is letting you be a mother, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously you are the mother, right? And not that I don't want you to be a mother, it's just I try so hard for his lifestyle or way the way he's growing up not to be identical to mine. So it's hard to balance, certain things because I guess I always go over the edge and over the top with my thought process, or no, we can't do this because then this is going to happen, or we can't
like
do that.
overthinking.
Yeah, no, I'm extremely aggressive about it. So I think that's been the toughest thing where I've been trying to like be okay with not necessarily raising him my way, because obviously it's both of us in this marriage together. So I guess, can you talk about that? Let's talk about marriage and how's it been being married to me? Only honest answers. How's it been being married to me? We're married, 6 years now, right?
Yeah, going on 7 July.
Going on 7, right? Sure? Because I don't know.
Yeah.
We're going. All right, we're going on 7. Right. Yeah. So yeah, we're going on 7, and July 4th. That way we don't forget the date. But yeah, I guess talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the transition. We were friends for such a long time before we got married. We worked together in different organizations and ministry-wise before we got married. So the transition, even though at first it was an interesting ride, and
he was feeling me.
It was just like new feelings, different types of feelings from someone that was, I considered you one of my closest friends. But I think that's what made the transition easy, because we already knew each other. We were in each other's lives a lot. And yeah, I feel like it was a little seamless. Maybe not the very, very beginning.
Well, the truth is, I chased you for months, and you wanted nothing to do with me. And then there was that infamous night where I told you how I felt, and you said, "Let me call you right back," and I didn't hear from you for like a week. But besides that, it got good afterwards. I remember asking you out, I think for like Valentine's Day. And I was like, yeah, let's go. And you were like,
it's not a date. Yep.
Let's go out, but just as friends. And I just like hung up on you like, what? We're going to get out of here. I'm not doing
no holding
that.
hands, nothing.
But yeah, no, I harassed you. No, I'm joking. But yeah, you were able to like come around and see the beauty in me. So that's been, I've enjoyed our 6 years together. It's been crazy rough. But it's been very joyful in a lot of ways. I think in the very beginning, I feel like we're way better at communicating now. But in the very beginning, it was almost like we knew each other and we were friends. But then when we got married, it was like we didn't know each other anymore, in the sense of like, we didn't really know how to communicate. We didn't really know how to share. We didn't know how to like be honest. And I felt like my whole like being with you, I was trying to live up to this weird expectation that I knew necessarily wasn't me. So I guess, can you talk about that? Like how was it early, the beginning, as opposed to now? And
I think definitely communication has gotten better, which is interesting because when we weren't dating, I felt like we spoke a lot, but I think it's just a different dynamic, obviously, when you get married. And there's different things in play. And I think for me, just because of like past relationships, the biggest issue for me was kind of like trust and like letting my guard down completely. So I think that mixed with other things kind of interfered with the way we could communicate, because to be honest, I'm a bit reserved in general, but I feel like my reaction to certain things in the beginning was just to shut down or not, want to communicate, because I want to avoid it getting into something else. And
you're that type of person, and I'm the type of person that wants to handle it now,
right,
on the spot,
not have it linger, etc.
Yeah, I don't believe in lingering. I just can't. I've tried better with you, but I think that's still an issue. I feel like every time I just have to address it and have to not necessarily fix it there, but get it out in the open. But I would say this. I would say when we were friends and I feel like I wasn't scared to tell you everything because I didn't consider you that way, or I don't know. I wasn't really.
The emotions weren't
right.
there.
I wasn't really thinking like, oh, I don't really care. And I remember telling you like the awful things about me. But then
I knew all your dirt.
Yes.
So I wasn't surprised or anything.
Right. But then when we ended up like falling in love, like a Disney film, what happened was I think I almost was afraid to show you my fears, even though you knew them already. And it was so weird. It's just I stopped being that person that was completely open. And I don't really know what that was, you know. I don't really know what made that really happen. But I think this journey that we both are in now and what's been going on with both of us and during the pandemic or a little bit before, honestly, I would say, well, a lot of our marriage was in the pandemic, technically, right? Like it was like
2 years
almost
of it.
3 years.
No, 2 years of it.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. But
I think most of our parenthood has been in the pandemic, so that's like a challenge already, or like another type of hurdle.
Yeah.
And then to add the pandemic on top of that, you know, he was born like maybe a year before the pandemic,
right.
so
like his
toddler years which are challenging,
which are heavy development years too, right? But I think it was so when we had, it was just an easier way to avoid you. If I'm being honest, it was an easier way to avoid you during marriage when we didn't have the baby, because I would just go out with the guys or just go to the room or just play 2K and you did your own thing. Not that we were trying to like completely avoid each other, like we were mad, but it was just easier to kind of like take breaks from each other, like, which I do feel somewhat healthy. You should have your own life as well, but I think we kind of used that time not to necessarily like rest or relax, but more like avoid conflict,
right?
Or avoid things. And I would play 2K for like 5 hours,
or we'll be at work, you know.
Right. And I would take like a double shift and like, oh, I'm working to midnight, then I just go home and sleep. And it was, but I think when we had Jordan, if I'm being honest, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think it forced us to deal with not only the situation of having a baby, but it forced us to deal with us, because now here we both are trying to care for this life of its own, right? And a lot of our characteristics came rushing out, you know, like the type of person we are and all that stuff. And it for me, it was super interesting because I never questioned myself or my sanity or my mental health as much as I did during the pandemic, or technically right before it started. So I guess, how did you feel about me coming out with like my mental health issues and depression and anxiety? Like, you know, because that's not necessarily something a lot of husbands talk about or a lot of men talk about. I was a bit afraid. I remember when we first started talking about it, I was a bit afraid that you weren't going to like love me anymore because of it. And I was like this complete flawed and broken person. So I guess talk about that, how it kind of, your first introduction to it, and then how it is now for you in a sense, because I feel like I've always struggled with it, and I would just have these episodes that you didn't really know. Right. Yeah, I'm not trying to guide your conversation, but go ahead with that.
No, I think I noticed just with different situations, not to go into detail with everything, but before before Jordan was born. But I think, you know, because we were just trying to keep the peace and most times and not confront the issues head on, etc. I think that because Jordan was born and it kind of, I don't know if it triggered or it activated it, kind of like a self-reflection on some of those.
Definitely did, yeah.
You know, mental health issues, or just like how to react to certain things. I think it kind of forced us to talk about it, because honestly, I think that we probably didn't really have much conversation when it came to how you mentioned the way you wanted to raise him or wanted to avoid certain things. We spoke about, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to have, a kid, but we never really spoke about our parenting styles or, what we're going to do, and different, mental health issues can kind of affect how we parent. Or the decisions we make when it comes to parenting.
Yeah. And not even mental health. I think you come from a very strong family. And I think I also come from a very strong family. And you don't realize it, but a lot of, not you per se, but like we don't realize it, but a lot of our culture, right, revolves around how we moved in those bigger families. So you kind of just pass that on to your kid. But here's this kid getting 2 different ways of being raised, technically.
Right.
So
yeah. Yeah. And then the second part of that question was
just kind of like how's the transition like from the very beginning and me kind of discussing with you, and then how is it now? Because I think in the beginning it was just more of me and you talking about it every night. And I think every other month I would tell you like this deep, dark thing that I was kind of holding in. And it was like, for me, it was unfair to you. And I would always be afraid to tell you because I felt like I should have told you a bunch of stuff before marriage. But I was so afraid to tell you. But when I did, it was a sense of relief. But then my anxiety kicked in because it was like, man, how do you see me now?
Right.
Right. So I guess we'll talk about that part first. Like, how was that in the beginning once we were having our own kind of like private conversations about things?
I think that it brought some clarity to, thinking about different things that have happened before and the reactions to certain things, to certain situations.
Yeah.
That, it's more than just a reaction to one thing. It's like deeply rooted because of X, Y, Z, or, something that may be from your childhood, or something from the way you were raised, or something from a family, a familial thing or whatever. So I think that it helped, have that open dialogue and communication with really finding the root of it or talking through it and gaining some understanding towards it, and not try to take it so offensively. Because there's more to it. There's more layers to it. And I think also helped, kind of observe those cues whenever something else would happen, or maybe the way I would approach a situation or a conversation, just because I know what it might lead into. So maybe just approach it a different way, which better our communication overall anyway.
You ever felt like you were walking on eggshells?
Yeah, I think earlier on in our marriage, because of that, like, I think I noticed a few things, but I'm just like, okay, is there something else going on here? Or is just, just a reaction because of something? So it's like, okay, what do I say to avoid that? Because, I had my own issues from past relationships and stuff, and trust issues and different things. And I didn't want to be put in that place of being shut down.
Right.
So it's like, I want to avoid this. So let me just not talk about anything or try to address it or resolve it.
Yeah. I think which is crazy too, because I think once we had Jordan, a lot of the day, I think I said this on the Marv episode too, but a lot of the day consists of being with him. And then at night we would have our alone time, and it would literally be like these therapeutic sessions that we would have, and we would just talk. But then obviously what I told you in private, like a lot of it became public once I started talking about like mental health and all this stuff and getting on lives on 2020 or whatever it was. And were you comfortable with that? And two, I guess, did it have any effect on you that I took a lot of what we spoke about in private, kind of like public, you know? Even though obviously they don't really know everything, but you know.
Yeah. I think the difference is that, you know, not everything's out there. But I think that it was kind of an outlet for you. So I didn't take it negatively.
Yeah.
It's not like you're airing, you know, not that there's so much dirty laundry in our relationship for it to air out, but I think that
be on TMZ.
I think that it was an outlet for you, and obviously, you know, it's a way for you to express yourself. And I didn't take offense to it because we were already at that moment where we were having more of a conversation, like our communications was getting better. So I feel like it wasn't like, well, you told the public all of this, but you never, why didn't you come to me about this or et cetera? Because I think that you did. But you probably wanted to gain some perspective from someone else also that you're not in a relationship with. And I think that that's healthy.
Yeah. Do you think it's made our relationship better? Not necessarily the coming out and telling the public about mental health, but me taking charge of my mental health and speaking on it and being more expressive and because it went from this closed off person, at least in my eyes, it went from this closed off person to someone that like almost was talking to you every day about something. Yeah,
there's like the little bit of being vulnerable,
and
expressing yourself. And I know that I'm also, like I said, a bit reserved. It's even a challenge speaking, you know, today in front of a camera like this. But
there's no camera. I don't know what you're
talking But I think that, you know, we express ourselves differently. For me, it could be writing. Like I'm better with like not so much verbal, but writing things out, right? But I think that it helped us in a sense that it was easier to open that dialogue, to get a little deeper into some of the issues and have those tough conversations.
I remember when we going back to like the beginning of marriage, and you wanted to tell me something that was like really deep, and you wanted to get something off your chest, you would text it to me.
Yeah,
and it would be this long text, and
like
I was
essay.
just sitting there, and I never used to read it. I used to get so mad, like, no, tell me
like
what's on the message.
Go to the other room. Why can't I'm right here? Why can't you tell me?
Yeah, but it was interesting because I made. Even in that, it was hard for me to see that you weren't comfortable expressing yourself, but I still made it about myself in the sense of like, oh, just tell me, like that doesn't make sense. But it was hard for me to see in the moment, like, well, there's a problem if she can't even verbally express herself to you, and in that sense,
I mean, it's a mix of things. It's not only because of you or like, it's also my type of personality.
I wasn't a bad guy.
My type of personality. So I think that helps. I mean, I can't also be completely closed off if there's anyone that I can speak to about anything. Should be my spouse, you know?
Yeah.
So, I think that it benefited not only you, but me to be a little more comfortable in just having the conversation. And I can't say that I'm not I don't know. It's weird. Like sometimes I'm like not confrontational in a bad way, but like trying to confront an issue.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a problem doing it sometimes, but I think it's sometimes like the reserved part of me kind of overshadows.
Yeah.
It's like
well, sometimes I feel like because you're so reserved, I feel like I don't know if it's just you just being you or you shutting down. You know what I mean? Well, obviously it's a lot less now, but before it was like, wait, are you feeling a certain way or are you okay?
I know,
like,
it's a mystery.
You know, it's like one of those like memes on Instagram, like, oh, I'm okay kind of situation, but
I'm fine. And then everything's on fire.
Yeah. But, all right. So with the conversation we're having now, do you feel like and doesn't have to be for everybody. I'm not putting any type of mental health on you or anxiety or whatever the case is. But do you feel like you've started possibly looking at yourself and realizing like, oh, maybe this, because they say a lot more people struggle from mental health than like people actually admit. Mm-hmm. Would you say in this journeying with me through this, you've also kind of like identified things or not really?
To be honest, I feel like it's hard to tell. I think especially after Jordan was born, it was hard to tell because you have your, baby blues or postpartum, just issues, right? And for me, I think it's hard to kind of like decipher, okay, what's happening because of hormones, being pregnant, right? Or what's happening because I just had a kid, or being overwhelmed because I'm also working full time, have a newborn, in this new stage of being parents and also trying to maintain our marriage
right.
with having a child. So I think maybe like looking back, I can see where maybe some anxiety was rising up from that. But it's just like, it's all a blur.
Right.
And I think, as he got a little older, then the pandemic happened. And then you have, struggling with some anxiety with that and just trying to be healthy and also dealing with work and like a new type of stage of working.
Right.
Remotely and having a toddler at home. And then we moved. So there was like a lot of stuff going on with that.
Yeah.
So I think it was like a mix of different things. And I was, I was so busy to not really recognize it at the moment.
Yeah.
I think later on after, things settled down and there was some transitions going on, especially with work. I think that I was able to recognize, and it was just like a relief. So
yeah,
it was just like, okay, yeah, this was causing me a lot of anxiety. And
yeah.
I feel so much at ease and peace now.
Yeah.
So,
so you addressed two things in there, right? So going back, if we can we talk about postpartum a little bit? Just because I think we're reaching it from two different directions, right? I think it took you a while. If I'm not, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. I think it took you a while to admit you actually was having an issue, right, with postpartum, or at least communicating that to me. And for me, if I'm being honest, I was a bit insensitive to it because I didn't understand what it was. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's not something that we really prep for, Right. So I guess, what was that like? You know what I mean?
I think it's tough because I'm also the type of person, I think it's just because of how like I was raised, or like how my mom kind of like raised at least her daughters. Is kind of like, or maybe what we observed from her is like, not the hustle and bustle of everything, but just like always occupying our time or doing something, or we're always busy, that we don't recognize or have the time to deal with the emotional side of things, because we need to get something done or we need to take care of this child,
Right.
It's almost like a suck it up type of attitude. Like,
yeah.
Life is going to continue, so we have to get it together, And I'm trying to say it in a way that doesn't sound like terrible, but yeah, I mean, sometimes I felt like it was like there's no time to really try to tap into what's going on and how I feel.
Right.
On top of being a mom, because it's like, no, I need to get things done. I need to take care of my child. I don't have time for the emotions
right.
that comes with it. But But then you get to a point where sometimes it's like you're breaking down.
Right.
Because you don't handle those emotions when you need to leading up to it. So it's like, I mean, whenever they arise. So it's like, you know, there's times that I honestly, like, if I went to go take a shower or whatever, it's just like I'm bawling or crying or whatever because all of these other emotions are going on. And it's like, when am I going to find the time to deal with the emotions? And it's like, it's not something I was used to doing.
And I'm over there sitting playing 2K. I remember feeling so bad. I think at one point because you, I think you let me have it one day. I forgot what day it was, but man, it was like an explosion. But obviously that was the turning point of like, hey, I'm gonna need some help with this. And I think it definitely checked me because it's not something that I don't know if I care about you and I cared about you.
I hope so.
But I don't know, man. And the thing is, I don't consider myself to be a person who doesn't have empathy or compassion for people or love for what, but I was almost blind to it because in a sense of, I don't know, maybe it was the mix of like the communicating wasn't at its best at that time. And it was almost like a recipe for disaster. So I guess in talking about, you know, that, right. And then talking about how your mom raised you and how you guys were kind of like the hustle and bustle of everything. What is, let's say, I guess, the biggest thing you've learned in marriage?
Wow. Okay. The biggest thing.
Or not necessarily the biggest thing, but I guess the toughest thing.
Yeah, I think, you know, what's funny is, you know, I was born and raised in church, right? And I've been to so many of these relationship and marriage, even before marriage conferences and all that stuff, whatever.
Never been to any of those things.
I've always been to these relationship conferences, even not being married, etc. And
you had the blueprint.
Yeah.
You were supposed to school me.
And I, you know, no, communication was key. Communication's key. But it's like, it's really, you know, being about communication and open dialogue and not just expecting, okay, no, that means that the other person needs to really, you know, take it for yourself, that you need to be open and vulnerable and being able to just trust the person that you love wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing for me. Obviously, there's factors of why I was closed off in that area. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me. Communication, because it just makes things easier. There's none of these like expectations, you know?
Yeah.
Like, well, you know, you're not a mind reader. You know, if I'm upset because of whatever, and it could be the smallest thing, I can't just expect you to know why I'm upset or what is like. No. Sometimes I feel
There's
like
memes about this.
Yeah, like well, you should know.
Yeah, yeah.
You should know that there's
I'm like, you know, recapping all these things in my head. Yeah,
like you can't have that expectation. I mean, sometimes things are a little obvious, but you can't always have that expectation and, you know, just come from a place of love in trying to make it apparent.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if it happens again and again and again, then it's like, okay.
I would say the toughest thing for me, right? Okay, so this is a real.
Oh God.
This is, you know, and you can rebut or.
Okay.
But I think the toughest thing for me was not understanding how you were raised, in a sense of like you said, like your mom was a go-getter. You know what I mean? Like she made it happen, and it was almost like she instilled that in all of her kids.
Don't get me wrong, my dad too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But I think from a woman's dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
I think I would truthfully say I wasn't ready for how strong you were. Not saying that I wanted someone weak. That sounds horrible. But what I'm saying is you were so independent. It felt like you didn't need me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a punch in the gut for me to my ego or pride. Like you literally figured everything out without me. You didn't really need my support for anything. It was almost like, to be honest, it was almost like, yo, why am I here? You know what I mean? Because you had everything all figured out. You would plan stuff and it was almost like, I'm just along for the ride. You know what I mean? And I think with that, right? And if I'm being like super transparent, right? It was that, and then how skilled you are at your profession, or how smart you are at things, and how you're able to like resolve problems and able to like figure things out. Like you were so much better at life than me that I was like, yo, I'm literally worthless in this relationship. I'm like, what am I here for? Just to play 2K. Like that's all I'm here for. So I guess that was the toughest thing for me. Not, and I remember I would get mad because I would be like, yo, like I'm here too, you know? But I believe I'm doing way better, because I would lie to say if I'm completely, you know, on the opposite side of that now. But I think I'm doing way better with understanding and being in love with the strong, independent, you know, woman that you are, that it's almost like a now I'm joyful. Like, yo, like you are this, you know, and but I think that was the toughest thing for me, to try to like, okay, this it's okay, you know what I mean? And yeah.
I think in return, so that's probably also, maybe if I can add to it, the toughest thing for me is like relying on you more because of that. Like,
I don't need you.
Can you open this jar? No, I'm like, just relying on you more for different things. And, you know,
it's like a shelf. Like, yo, you need me to put up the shelf? No, I did it already. Like, oh, okay, cool. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So, but I think I'm getting better at it. And, I think because we work together, I think we find ways to work together a lot more, whether it's like projects or whether we're working for something else, and we just find a way to work together, and it kind of meshes well, I believe. So I guess transitioning into like working together during the pandemic, we kind of had to work alongside each other, and then we had our own jobs, and I think that's when it got pretty crazy for us. It was almost like, but I think we did a good job at identifying it. And
sooner.
Right. Way sooner, before things got crazy. But it was almost like, hey, we got to take a step back. I guess talk about the pandemic when it comes to work life for you. And, you know, Jordan was 1 year old, and I felt like we were both on the computers at the same time. And, and I don't know if I don't even remember anything from back then. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know when he woke. No, I'm joking. But I remember we weren't with him a lot. We weren't physically with him. We're not horrible parents.
He wasn't alone.
Right. But it was almost like we would play with him, and then you would jump on the computer, and then we would switch out. I would be with him, and then I would jump on whatever it was. But I guess talk about that and what led you to make the move you made.
So, yeah.
That was a lot. Sorry. But go ahead.
When the pandemic happened, well, I guess I'll start a little bit before the pandemic happened. You know, Jordan was, this is before he turned 1. So a lot of his first year, I was working.
I took care of that boy. I felt like a dad.
But it was, it was really challenging for me because when I would, you know, my commute was terrible to go into work. I worked in the city. We lived in Queens at the time. Commute was terrible. It was like, what, 2 trains and a bus. It was just horrible. But anyways, the point is when I would leave to go to work,
that boy was sleeping.
He was sleeping. And then when I finally got back home, it was like just to put him to bed or to give him dinner maybe, or you already had handled that, and then put him to bed. So it was really challenging for me because I felt like I missed a lot of his, I mean, I had my moments. I did work remotely like during the middle of the week or something like that. So there was like that one day that I tried to absorb everything in his development for that first year. But there's a lot of moments, you know, that I missed, or
I was sending you a lot of videos like, look what he did today.
Yeah. So that took a little bit of a toll on me. And I was contemplating, because we had Jordan and because of how I, felt with working, I was contemplating leaving my position. I was working for an organization at that time. It was like, overall it was like 7 years. And it was hard for me because I really, worked hard to get to that position. And that was kind of like one of my dream roles in a sense.
Yeah.
Career path wise, to be creative director at someplace, whether it was an organization or a company. But for this, it was so rewarding because it was a nonprofit organization. I got to do what I love, which is, creative arts and graphic design for such a noble mission within this organization. So I'm like, but I also was doing freelance on and off for like 15 years.
Right.
And
you were doing all my flyers and all my graphics for free.
So when Jordan was born and that was happening, with kind of missing some of these milestones, I was contemplating leaving that position and just pursue full-time freelance or with my company.
Right.
And it was just, I'm an overthinker in some ways because I want to just make sure that it's financially the right decision. I know I had your support, but it was just, for me, it was like, okay, am I really going to do this? And, the biggest factor I think was after, I felt a little bit of doing it when we, before the pandemic,
right.
With missing those milestones. But when the pandemic happened and, okay, I have this opportunity that I'm working remotely. I am with Jordan, I am with him at home, but I was still missing out because I was so busy and overloaded with work with, I'm sure a lot of us were, just with that transition, that I felt like I need to transition out of this and kind of maybe take that leap of faith and pursue this full time, just because I can make my own schedule. I can work for myself. I can still do these, I can still work for the organization just as a contractor.
Right.
But it was like that flexibility and being available for Jordan and for us too.
Yeah.
But I think Jordan was the biggest factor. It was like that year before the pandemic leading up, but then when the pandemic actually happened, it was just like nonstop. And I felt like it wasn't fair for his it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to him.
Yeah, I remember you would go through, like, it was almost like a year, to be honest, where you would write down like this plan of like, oh, this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm going to get, 2 jobs in and whatever. And you would break everything down in your spreadsheet. But you never pulled the trigger every couple months. And I know I wasn't like, there would be times where I'd be like, yo, like, all right, we'll figure it out. Like, but obviously what made you was it Jordan that just made you say, all right, I'm just going to jump out there? Or did you become unhappy, even though it was like a dream job for you? Did you become unhappy with, I guess, where life was taking you and just this specific role? Like, all right, just, because I guess for a lot of people, everybody wants to do something where where they want to go off on their own, but it's just like pulling that trigger. You know what I mean? Like, what was it? Was there an it for you, or was just
Yeah. I think it was the pandemic, that extra layer of actually. So now I have the opportunity to be home all the time, but I'm not really present as, a parent for Jordan, because I'm overloaded, because there was a lot of transition, within the organization itself. And I was taking on
you
other
went from doing
responsibilities.
like 40 hours to like 80 hours in a week. It was insane.
Yeah. So I think that is what pushed me. And also there was different things going on with your role and your position and responsibilities and, being on the field more often. So I'm like, this is not going to work. And I've been contemplating this for so long. I've written out a plan like every other week of how this is going to work. So it's like, I don't know how much more planning I can add to the plan.
Right.
I just have to actually do it.
Right.
And, I have no regrets. It's been a year.
No regrets.
I resigned last year in February, actually.
And took them on as a client.
Took them on as a client. And just relationships that I built within the organization, helped me have some other clients. And it's just been fruitful. And it's been the best. And I, can work on my own schedule. I spend most of the day with Jordan like I wanted to, and benefits us too.
Yeah. So now talking about like your profession and you starting your company and it being freelance. For me, I think it's completely different from when you freelance, because in my opinion, right, you were freelancing a lot, but now it's like the person that when I see you working, it's just like there's just so much more you've added to it that I love to see you work. So I guess to ask, where does it kind of start for you? Where did you choose? I think the only creative, I'm not saying that I don't know a lot of creative people, but there's very few people that do a lot that you do. You know what I mean? Like you have like the Batman tool belt and it's just a bunch of things in there. But how did you choose this career? Why did you choose the career?
So I've always been interested in the arts field in general. I guess I'll bring my mom back into this. When we were younger, in church, always involved with at home with arts and crafts stuff. And, with Vacation Bible School or Sunday school, helping her with the crafts type of things. And then just always creating something. And then when I was younger, I wanted to be an art teacher. That was the first thing that I thought my career was going to be. And then when I went to junior high school, I went to a vocational junior high school. They had an arts program, a fine arts program. I entered it. And then I did fine arts there for 2 years. And then when I went into high school, I auditioned for a few, there was an auditioning process for arts for a few high schools. And then the one I selected, I started off in a fine arts program. And then for ninth grade, so my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, you had the opportunity they split the arts program into graphic arts and production, or I think advertising, arts and advertising or something like that. Right. So I chose the graphic arts and production management because it just so happens at that time, one of my brothers, I can't remember if he was at the end of high school or entering college. He was into graphic arts and he had the Adobe programs at home, and I would mess around with it and try to create certain things. So it kind of sparked a little passion for the computer arts side of it. So I decided to do that. So it kind of shifted from fine arts to graphic arts. And it was I was in love. I was just to create something in the computer and just just typography, just a whole bunch of things. Everything that has to do with graphic arts, it just was amazing to me. And I, benefited from the program that I had in my high school, because I was able to actually work for my high school had a company. It was a graphic arts and printing company. And we did graphic arts and print for the school, but also other schools, public schools.
I mean, I should have lived in Queens. We had nothing in Brooklyn. Jesus.
So, I actually got a job, and which led also to me getting, aside from my, high school diploma, I did like a certification program with graphic arts, and I just never, anything that was ever involved with after that, I was like, how old at the time? Like, I don't know, 14, 15.
Yeah.
Has always been in the graphic arts fields or photography, something related. We also did photography in that class. So it's always been arts related. And, the only transition was just the fine arts to the graphic arts.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think here I am, playing 2K again, and I'm looking at you literally editing stuff for hours. And you I remember asking you one time, like, yo, like, you don't get tired of this? And you were like, no, I love it. And I'm like, okay, all right, keep playing. But okay, so talking about, where you've been, what are you doing now? What is success for you?
Success for me, there's just different layers to success. Also, a lot of people just say, the financial aspect part of it. But for me, it's just, not to sound like, those corny cat posters that says hang in there. But there's like a quote that says, find a job you love and you never work a day in your life. I think that's success. It's like, for me, is to do something that I'm passionate about. Another side of me is that I like to help others, with certain things. So in my line of work, I can find these creative solutions to problems.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fueling the passion at the same time. And I love doing it. So, and it also makes money. But aside from that, it's like all that wrapped together is what success is, and keeping my sanity.
That's a big one. All right. So last question. If you had a billboard, you can put it anywhere. Where would you put it, and what would it say?
If I had a billboard, first it would probably be like, maybe the location would probably be like, I don't know, Times Square, anywhere that's like a lot of foot traffic.
You're definitely like thinking about it, planning it out like creatively. Like, I would put it in the most.
Anywhere there's a lot of foot traffic or just visual. You can't have a billboard just, in the boondocks, nowhere. That's not going to be seen because that's not a great return on your investment. But
I would have mine in the trails of California. Those trails everybody be walking on.
Oh, yeah.
Up there.
What would it say?
I love my husband, something like that.
I'll say I love my husband on the bottom, and then it will just say, this is a tricky question for me. I don't have anything inspiring to say, so I'll just promote myself, and I'll have my website. So righteous without an I, righteouswithoutani.com.
Okay, boom. So righteous without an I. Why is it righteous without an I?
So what I try to do is a lot of the clients that I take on, they either serve the community, is an organization or company that serves the community, and it takes the I out of what we're doing, which is something righteous. It takes me out of it. So the I out of it, and it's about helping others.
So your billboard it's your But with a sub in it, you see?
With a sub. And they have to go to the site to understand,
Great. All right, so we're done here, right? Do you have any last thoughts for mothers, women in business, anything that would allow them to pull that trigger if it comes to like them working or, may not have it all figured out with parenthood or are going through postpartum, like, any type of, or anything for dads. If it's like, hey, pay more attention. Get off 2K.
I think if there's any advice I'd have for moms, especially first time moms, even if you're not a first time mom, because they say every pregnancy is different, and
that's a fact.
It's another level to, when you have a second child, which I will soon find out. Don't suffer in silence is the biggest thing. That could have been your billboard, but don't suffer in silence. Communicate. It doesn't make you less stronger of a woman or of a mom to lean on to your significant other, or if you don't have someone in the picture, get someone that you can really count on, a friend, a family member. Just don't suffer in silence, because it's not healthy for yourself and for your child. Yeah,
I thank you for being on. I love you.
I love you too.
You're amazing. I want to be just like you. Where can people find you? Where can people book you? Where can people see your work? Or
Righteous.com without an I. Honestly, I've been super busy, so I need to update the Instagram. Same thing as Righteous, with the underscore at the end. But if you go to righteous.com without the I, you can contact me there. A message the contact form goes straight to my email.
That's it. Well, I love you. Thank you for being on.